Oh, sorry, didn't see you there. I'm about to react to my 2023 AFL season predictions. What possibly could go wrong, apart from maybe a slight little bit of embarrassment, or even maybe a bit of comedic value for my own misjudgment. But someone has to take home the wooden spoon, and I believe for 2023 it will be the GWS Giants. I think overall they're... This is gonna be a long video. G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Yes, as you can see by the title and the slight little intro, we are going to be reacting to my 2023 AFL season predictions. It's always a fun video to do at the end of the actual now season. Obviously recording this video the day after the great grand final, the Pies getting up. Massive congratulations to them. Do I put the Pies in the top four? Did I put them for the flag? We'll see in this video. But yeah, there's a lot of shocking calls potentially coming up. I forgot most of the positions, so I'm actually interested to see. And alongside, of course, reacting to the ladder prediction, I am also going to be reacting to the other awards that I did do in that video, like the Brownlow, Coleman, and Rising Star. And I decided to also include me reacting to a few bold calls I did in a video around that time back in March earlier this year, because there's a few that I did remember that I felt I was close from doing, from actually becoming correct. So yeah, no, it should be a pretty fun video. So yeah, prepare for the absolute embarrassment I'm going to be facing probably with this video, with potentially a lot of terrible calls. But no, I've appreciated everyone's support, of course, across the span of this season. I'm keen to get in the off-season content, but yeah, let's just have a laugh and see how I did go. Now, of course, I will continue the scoring system, which I did implement in last year's edition of this. So basically, with the ladder predictions, I'll have the scoring system where the lower score, the better. Basically, it's pretty simple. You have where you placed a team, and then you compare that to where they actually finished. So, for example, let's say the Swans in 5th place. They ended up finishing 8th, so it's a 3-point difference. You do that for every team, and of course, just like golf, the lower score is the better. And with that scoring system in 2022, I did get 56 points. So the goal is to try and get a lower score this year. So will I look like an absolute expert, or will I look like an absolute nuffy? We're about to find out within the next 20 minutes. Let's get in the video, shall we, fellas? Pop on the cans. HyperX's, they do need probably a bit of upgrading. The leather and all that crap's come off, but yeah, I'm keen to get into it. Let's go. Okay, wooden spoon, we all know what it is. From the bottom four, but someone has to take home the wooden spoon. And I believe for 2023, it will be the GWS Giants. Yep, a absolutely pathetic way to start off this video. I had the Giants for the spoon. They ended up finishing not only 7th, making finals, but they were 1 point off the grand final. This is an all-time howler by myself. Yeah, I just... In the end, I was definitely naive with the Giants heading into this year by the looks of it. I think in general, I think we all were naive with their list changes. We all felt Bobby Hill out the door, Taranto and Hopper. Well, Bobby Hill did hurt them. He actually ended up winning the Norm Smith. But just in general, like, you know, two of their good quality midfielders, Hopper and Taranto. What would Bedford bring? What would their young midfielders bring? What would maybe some of their experienced players bring? Would they get back up the ladder this year? And of course, under the first year coach of Adam Kingsley, there's a lot of question marks, and I just personally felt they would struggle this year to get results. But yeah, how about the season they had? They started off the season slow, but they started to build the wins. They were terrific on the road this year, and one of the, I think, everyone's favourite, second favourite team to watch if you weren't a Giants supporter. So yeah, massive embarrassment from me. A poor decision it was. I had the Giants in 18th, and with the scoring system, it was a 11-point difference. 17th place, and I do have the Hawthorn Footy Club. Now, Alright, so the Hawks in 17th position. I think that's, in the end, okay. They ended up actually finishing, of course, in 16th position, so it is a 1-point difference. Now, heading into this video, I did remember, you know, in the build-up to it, I didn't want to have the Hawks as the wooden spooners, because I just felt like they were too much of a quality side to be last place. And in the end, even though they finished 16, they had 6 wins, and they had wins against some great quality sides this year. So I guess that hypothesis or that statement was correct, but still I had them in the bottom 2, but it was only a 1-point difference. We all knew the Hawks were definitely a lock for the bottom 4 this year. So yeah, 17th I will take, but they're going to be an exciting team, I think, over the next few years, a side that could possibly push up into mid-table next year. 16th place, I do have the North Melbourne Kangaroos. Okay, so North Melbourne in 16th position. Well, to be honest, if you just switch them around with Hawthorn, it would be on the money. You know, them finishing 17th, of course, so another 1 point difference. Yeah, North Melbourne again, pretty much another easy one heading into this year for the bottom four. Few people had them pushing out of the bottom four, but I just couldn't see it yet under the first year coach of Alistair Clarkson. Would it take a while for him to develop his players or get to know his players? They started off the year great with the first 2 wins, but yeah, you could just see they don't have the quality of the list throughout, you know, all their positions across the field, a lack of winning culture, a lack of good enough senior players. But they did have a lot of gallant performances this year. They still are a young side. But yeah, I think it was a pretty easy prediction with North Melbourne. And they were quite close from another wooden spoon. But yeah, ended up finishing 17th. So 1 point difference. 15th place, I do have the Saints. Oh, dearie me. Saints in 15th. I do have a massive egg in my head at the moment. If the Giants prediction wasn't as crap enough, the Saints were in the 8 for every single round of 2023 and they ended up finishing 6th. They were first round exits and didn't really look like much of a damaging or opposing team to compete for the flag. But still, home away season, they definitely proved me wrong. I mean, massive credit to what they were able to do this year with Ross Lyon getting the most out of that list. But for me, the big question was their list. Was it good enough? And I felt they would sort of stall a bit this year and maybe a year of development under the Saints, under the first year coach of Lyon. But yeah, the personnel changes they had prior to this year definitely gave a lot of Saints fans optimism. They were optimistic on to make the 8, whilst a lot of other people had their doubts, including myself. And no, they just were awesome this year on being a really strong defensive outfit. They still were a little bit inconsistent with their midfield and forward half setup, but they were in the 8 for every round of the year, so they've definitely proved me wrong. A 9 point difference. This scoring system is not off to a good start. 14th place now, moving up into the bit of the mid-table area, I do have the Essendon Football Club. Okay, so Essendon in 14th position. I guess I'll take that as not a bad prediction. They ended up finishing in 11th place, so 3 point difference. Now, I remember Bold caught at the start of the year saying I reckon maybe a side like Essendon could push into the top 8. I definitely was a believer that they would have a much better year than last year, but I think the focus for me with Essendon was if they could just, the more important things was just to, you know, fix the off-field issues, you know, try and become a bit more of an accountable side and a bit more of a mentally tougher side. And I think we saw that this year, especially in the first half of the season. The pressure was great. They were playing a confident brand early on, you know, that chipmunk style, of course. But things, unfortunately, did fade away in the second half of the year, probably just a lack of polish. And unfortunately, they went back into old habits of just poor, unaccountable footy and just getting pummeled. So, yeah, a bit of a season of two tails, really. But I think overall, it wasn't a bad year for Essendon, ending up finishing pretty much in mid-table in 11th position. In 13th place now, I've got a bit of a riser from the bottom 4 from last year. I do have the West Coast Eagles. Oh, dearie me, the poor predictions do not end there, as we do have West Coast out of the bottom 4. I was one of those believers that I did think West Coast would have a pretty decent year. You know, not the year they had in 2022. I had belief that a few of their old players could really get out of injury and have a good year, and that just wasn't the case at all. The injuries continued, the complacency and just really the lack of standards really kicked in, unfortunately, for the Eagles this year. Absolute embarrassment throughout most of this year as well, finishing in 18th, so a 5 point difference. Apart from their wins, of course, we all know they conceded 200 points against the Swans. They were just terrible on and off the field, and are just in desperate need of young talent. So I think they're going to be a side on the rise. I still believe in that in a way, but a terrible prediction really. In the end, having them what I think they would have finished mid-table. They didn't. They were the wooden spoons this year, so 5 point difference, and up finishing last. You always got to have underachieving sides in line of predictions, and at 12th place I do have Port Adelaide, and that probably... Oh, dearie me, another poor prediction. These are just keep on piling on. This is not going to end well. I thought my ones from last year were far better, but this is quite bad. Port Adelaide end up finishing in 3rd place. Now, I was back and forth with Port Adelaide heading into this year. I felt that would be a great chance to move into the top 8 again, because I felt they'd probably have a bit of a down year from last year. But hey, I ended up actually giving them the official thought of them being in 12th, and it was pretty poor. They started off the year a little bit shaky, let's be honest, but as soon as they got that win over the Swans, they went on that massive winning streak and were just one of the most resilient sides in the competition. So yeah, that was some poor thinking from me. I didn't really think too much of their young stars would really come out to play. Connor Rozee, Zach Butters had terrific years. Horn Francis as well. Their forward half was dangerous. They were great at home. And yeah, terrible prediction by myself. That's a 9-point differential. So we keep on adding on the pain with too many points. So yeah, they ended up finishing 3rd place, of course, Port Adelaide. And I had them 12th. In 11th place, I do have another riser in 2023. I've got the Adelaide Crows. I reckon they will... Okay, that's actually not a bad prediction. I did have the Adelaide Crows in 11th place. They ended up finishing in 10th. So that's a 1-point difference. Very close to getting that one correct. But, you know, in a way, you really should have made finals from that 𝐵𝐸𝐶𝐬 no-goal call. But yeah, I think a lot of people were pretty bullish on the Crows to move up the ladder this year. A few people had them for the 8. But I wasn't so sure just yet. What we saw was a side that definitely did improve this year, the Crows, but did lack that polishing, and they couldn't win. They couldn't win, of course, away from home. But they're a side with great upside. We saw, you know, a lot of their great youth players play well this year. Michaelani, of course, a bit from Saligo. Rochelle started the year extremely well. Taylor Walker got back to his best. Jordan Dawson was in all Australian form, close from winning the Brownlow medal. He had a great season too. And we all know, I think, just the pressure and the standards and the fitness of that club is a very promising sign. So, hey, I think this prediction was pretty almost bang on. Them 11th, and they ended up finishing 10th. Moving on now into 10th place, and I do have the Western Bulldogs. Okay, well, Western Bulldogs in 10th, and look, basically, they finished 9th, but, you know, if you have Bulldogs 10th, 9th, 11th, it doesn't matter. It is still pretty spot on. The Bulldogs, I reckon, would have missed the finals. That's basically the big talking point from this, from reacting to this one here. And they did. So, yeah, ended up finishing 9th, 1-point difference. I didn't have confidence in Luke Beveridge to really get the most out of the squad again this year, and they just ended up missing finals. Again, a really inconsistent year. They had games throughout the year where they looked quite good, but then they just looked terrible. They lost to West Coast, of course, had a few disappointing results, and I think we just saw the exposure of the list, the gap between their best and their worst players, their role plays. Some of them just aren't up to standard. So yeah, there's, I think, a bit of fixing to be done in the off season for the Doggies, but yeah, I think that's a pretty good prediction from myself there. Trying to recover this video because it's not a great prediction so far, but yeah, the Doggies ended up finishing 9th, had them in 10th. And now for the dreaded 9th place. I'm sorry, I've got to have a team here. It's got to be someone. I reckon it'll be Fremantle. It's hard. Okay, Freo Dockers in 9th position. Again, pretty much correct in a way. They did miss finals. I just felt they would miss the 8 this year. They ended up finishing in 14th, so they did a lot worse than I thought. I thought they'd compete well for finals this year, but they certainly didn't. They were really disappointing. Probably one of the most disappointing sides this year when looking at when looking at expectations. Sorry, excuse me. 5-point difference it was. Yeah, I think a few players did stagnate this year. They are still a very young side, let's remember the Dockers, but just how they played was very inconsistent and boring. They didn't really get much of their forward half. Very inconsistent players, like I said. You know, Jackson started off the year quite poor. Brayshaw's year was still good, but it wasn't like the levels of last year. Sarong had a great year, let's be honest. But yeah, young side. I think they'll get back up there within the next few years or so. Probably next year, maybe a good chance for the 8. But yeah, just weren't an intimidating enough side like they were last year, and they weren't good enough defensively like they were last year too. So yeah, they ended up finishing 14th, had them 9th. Now for the top 8, as stated before, there's just going to be a lot of competitive teams this year. It's a hard one to shuffle, a hard one to squeeze in enough teams, but there's only 8 at the end of the day. So for 8th place, I do have the Sydney Swans. Sydney Swans in 8th position. Well, there you go. I'll take that as a positive. At least one team I have from reacting to this, I have spot on with the home and away season. They did actually end up finishing 8th, so a 0-point difference. Spot on. I will take that. You know, as a Swan supporter myself, that's pretty good. That's 2 years in a row now where I've you know, gotten the Swans predictions pretty schmick. I did have them for 4th last year, ended up finishing 3rd. Had them for 8th this year, and they ended up finishing 8th. Yeah, I felt they would struggle a bit this year. The Swans, of course, off the back of that poor grand final loss, I felt it would affect the side mentally, but they still are a good enough talented side to push towards the top 8 spot, and they were a little bit lucky in the end, but it can't be discredited. Their second half of the year was very good, but it still was a disappointing year in general from the Swans. I think you know, they lost a lot of games when the game was in the balance, so I just felt they weren't mentally and physically fit enough. So yeah, I guess a few of those calls were correct, and yeah, got them spot on. They just snuck in the finals, and they did finish 8th, and I had them 8th. In 7th place, I do have a big call here. The Gold Coast Suns will make finals. Oh, well, there we go. My confident call at the time of Gold Coast making the 8 turned into an absolute shocker, as it was another disappointing year for the Suns. Another year in the bottom 4. And yeah, with that, it was an 8-point difference. But it just shows how even the competition was this year. Because Gold Coast were pretty gallant in defeat across the board this year. And they still finished bottom 4. And they were very close. They were in that position after those 2 wins in a row in Darwin. They were sitting, I'm pretty sure, in the 8. A great opportunity to finally make finals, but they were just unable to do it. They really dropped off in the second half of the year. But now I think I can sort of copy and paste potentially this prediction into next year, because now they have Damien Hardwick. Now there's a bit of confidence rising, I think, within the camp of Gold Coast. But yeah, I just felt at the start of the year they would really make finals. They've got a talented enough team, but then again they just dropped off. 𝐓𝐶 𝐿's injury really did hurt them, and I felt defensively as the season wore on they did get under heavy duress. So yeah, Suns had them 7th, ended up finishing in the bottom 4. So yeah, poor prediction. 8 points it was. Moving on up now to the top 6, and I do have in 6th place the Collingwood Footy Club. Okay, so the Pies in 6th place. Now, at least I did not have Collingwood miss the 8. Now, I do remember heading into this year, I was basically no chance from putting Collingwood out of the 8. I felt really confident they would bounce back after the great year they did have and that 1-point prelim final loss, and be a good chance again for the top 4. But yeah, with the shuffling around I had them sitting in between the top 4 and the bottom half of the 8. I did feel though this year Collingwood, people would start to get to homework a little bit more on how to beat Collingwood, and in a way I felt like that did happen a wee bit. But Collingwood's just ability between the arcs was so good this year, and again the mental side of things, the synergy under Craig McRae, and of course the fans, the support was remarkable this year. They were the benchmark, ended up of course finishing as a minor premier, so a 5-point difference. And well, in a way they don't necessarily, if you actually look at the stats, they didn't waltz their way to the flag. I think statistically they actually are one of the worst premiers of the last 20 years, but that's no disrespect to them. The numbers wise, it wasn't really a side to think, oh, they were the absolute kings of the jungle, but in a way they still were with how they played. So congrats to them on the flag. But yeah, having them 6th, yeah, it's not the end of the world, but still not really great prediction as I didn't have them in the top 4. So you have them 6th, so 5-point difference. In 5th place now, I do have the Richmond Tigers. Well, there we go. The Richmond Tigers had them in 5th, and I'll be honest, probably followed the crowd a little bit with this one. But I did have, the thought, thinking this is probably their last year, their last chance of really pushing to maybe one more big crack at a flag with the list they have. But now, I think from what we saw this year, they are starting to now be fading into the sunset. Now, it still was a disappointing year. They had a good chance to make finals, but the start of the year was really dreadful. They lacked efficiency, they lacked cohesion. Of course, the coach's box changes, all that whatnot. Now, 𝐼𝙗𝙤, of course, been the coach announced the other week ago. So, yeah, they probably are going to start entering a rebuild. A lot of their premiership stars retiring, of course, this year too. So it was an 8-point difference, had them 13th. But yeah, I just had good belief with Hopper and Taranto that they were really beasts this year. Of course, they didn't have Lynch, to be fair. But, heading into this year, they were definitely a side to be forced to be reckoned with, you felt, because they were the highest points for. I'm pretty sure they showed great turnover numbers from 2022, but I failed to capitalise on that. They did have a poor year, and end up finishing 13th. Move on now into the top 4. This is where things, of course, do get interesting. And in 4th place, I do have the Carlton Blues. Okay, Carlton in 4th place. I think that's a ripper of a prediction, if I might say so myself. Now, in the end, they actually finished being a top 4 team, because they did make the prelim final. End up finishing 5th. Now, this was an interesting one to ride throughout the year. Halfway through the year, I'm like, oh my god, this prediction is woeful. But then the second half of the year, we started to see, how they played, and this was just exactly how I felt they would have played for the whole year. They have a list that's capable of making finals. Michael 𝐕𝐻𝐸, I rate him as a coach that can get the most out of this squad, and they just built as the season went on. Halfway through, they really got back to their best in terms of stoppage. 𝐴𝐶𝐞 and a few of their important spine plays really lifted as well. And the most important thing was, I did have good faith in their role plays. In this video too, I had good faith in their role plays, and the gap between, their sort of bottom 6 plays to really, carry the load this this year, and we saw that in the second half of the year. So yeah, I think I'm pretty content with that prediction. Didn't have them. They didn't, of course, end up being in the top 4, but you know, they ended up being a top 4 team with how they finish off the year in a prelim final. So yeah, 1 point difference. End up finishing 5th, had them 4th. In 3rd place now, I do have the Brisbane Lions. They have... Okay, Brisbane in 3rd place. You know, just a pretty easy prediction. Always going to be a lot for the top 4 heading into this year, and they end up finishing in 2nd, so a 1 point difference. A few decent predictions there, these last couple now. The Blues and Brisbane now 2 1 points in a row. But yeah, good faith in the Lions, of course, to be another solid side this year. And, you know, they ended up finishing in 2nd place and competing for a grand final, being a kick away from winning the grand finals. So yeah, just had good belief, really. Not much else to be said. Pretty easy prediction. Brisbane had them 3rd, and they ended up finishing 2nd. 2nd place now, I do have the premiers from last year, the Geelong Cats. Yeah, Geelong in 2nd place. This was, again, had to be said, and pretty much everyone with their predictions felt that this was an absolute lock for Geelong to be another top 4 side this year. The thing is, like, when you ever say, or whenever you dare to say they're going to drop off this year, they just prove you wrong. But this is finally the year where we think now this is probably the end of their era with their list. And, you know, they're young players. They might have good talent, but probably just lack a bit of experience. So, you know, they weren't far off, to be honest, from making the 8. They had great percentage, but yeah, no, they just lost a lot of games this year where they were in the balance, but they just failed to get through. I thought they were a bit complacent this year. Mentally, they weren't good enough, and I just felt throughout games and all that whatnot, they just weren't a good enough and a damaging enough side. Defensively, they were poor, and around the foot in the midfield, they were let down a bit. So yeah, I think last year was just their last hurrah, but this year, no good. Had the Cats 2nd, a poor prediction there, ended up finishing 12th, so a 10-point difference. And now for my minor premiers, who I think will take home 1st place in 2023. The Melbourne Demons. So by the process of elimination, of course, the D's ended up who I thought would be the minor premiers in 1st, and they ended up finishing in 4th with a 3-point difference. Now, it's such a shoulda, woulda, coulda season from Melbourne. They really could have won the flag with how they went in the final series, but accuracy did hurt them, and they just weren't a good enough forward half side. But yeah, I did feel like this would have been their year, and again, numbers-wise, they were statistically probably one of the best seed teams in the competition, but just in terms of them actually playing, from actually watching them, they didn't really look like a chance to be the minor premiers at all. You know, clearly it either really was going to be Brisbane or the Pies. But yeah, you know, still had them for the top 4. So I guess it isn't the end of the world with a prediction. So yeah, had them 1st, ended up finishing 4th. So a 3-point difference. The Demons, I reckon they're going to be a strong year this year, and I believe they'll take home the premiership in 2023. And I had them also for the premiers. Again, a shoulda, woulda, coulda sort of situation. They did look good enough in a way to win the flag numbers-wise, but then again, they just failed just like last year in terms of no scoreboard pressure, and just in their forward half setup was a mess when going inside 50. So yeah, didn't get the premiers right, ended up going to the Pies. But yeah, there it is. There is the home and away season reaction, of course. Now, we all know, compared from last year, this was an absolute shocker. And with the scoring system I do implement, if you add up all the differential scores in the end, you do get 82 points, where last year I did get 56. So a massive gulf in quality there of predictions from myself from last year. Just terrible. No, there was just so many poor calls compared from last year. The few of them were okay, but just, you know, in the end, there was just so many shockers. Giants, Saints bottom 4, you know, Gold Coast in the 8, Richmond in the 8, Geelong 2nd. It was an absolute shocker. So yeah, no good from me. Got to pick up my game, I think, next year. If you've had enough laughing at me, well, the laughing does continue as we now react into some more stuff. We'll react to a few more awards the rest of this video, and we'll have a look at my bold calls too on top of this. Get off with the Brownlow medal, and as I always do say, it's just a random stab at a top tier midfielder, really. You can think about it a little bit more, but I reckon this year it will be 𝐼𝐶𝐞 𝐎𝐥𝐝 from the... The video has been resurrected. Bang, there you go. 𝐼𝐶𝐞 𝐎𝐥𝐝 for the Brownlow, and I ended up getting it. Did he deserve it? I mean, yes, of course he did, but with the controversy and all that whatnot, was he the best in clear, you know, best player in the competition to win it? Obviously not. But hey, I'm still happy I did get it right. I was pretty up and about on the night of the Brownlow medal because I did remember this prediction. But as I literally just said, basically, you just pick an elite midfielder and you're halfway there in terms of prediction. I just felt Neil would win it. And that's sort of off the back of he was very unlucky last year. And he ended up taking it home just in that last round, of course, this year. But hey, he still was top 5 for coaches' votes. So I still think, you know, impact-wise from coaches' perspectives, umpires' perspectives, and even some players have said 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐎𝐥𝐝 is one of the hardest players I've ever played on in terms of in the competition. I still think in and under he had a great year for the Lions in that way. He was big towards their premiership tilt this year and premiership push. And yeah, we all know one of the cleanest players in the stoppage. So he's still a fine player. Top 5 in the coaches' votes, as I say again. And the Brownlow medal, spot on. Did predict 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐎𝐥𝐝 and he ended up taking home Charlie. Moving on now to who I think will take home the Coleman medal in 2023. I did tip this guy last year, and I'm going to be tipping him again this year. Jeremy Cameron from the... Okay, well, Jeremy Cameron did tip, of course, for the Coleman heading into this year, and yeah, no good really. Halfway through the year, or the first few weeks, we're like, hey, this does look like a good prediction. He was leading the Coleman throughout stages, but unfortunately did get injured. That shock injury, of course, a horror injury, bumping into Gary Rohan, of course, which was an absolute shame. It did drop off really in the second half of the year too. It was almost like no excuses, back out in the park, but he was underwhelming really in that second half of the season. So don't know what went wrong. Maybe now we're starting to see him sort of fade out a little bit in terms of him getting older, but I still think he's a fantastic player. But it did go to 𝐸𝐿 again 2 years in a row. But yeah, 𝐸𝐿. Yeah, Coleman, you know, you just pick a top forward again, and I thought it would have been 𝐸𝐿. First half of the year was looking good, but fortunately with injury and lack of form, no good in the end. So, yeah, went with 𝐸𝐿, incorrect. And now for my Rising Star winner, I did sort of reveal it with my latter predictions for the Brisbane Lions. I think it will be Will Ashcroft for me. Okay, so Will Ashcroft did predict for the Rising Star. I can't, you know, lie here. Everyone pretty much had Ashcroft for the Rising Star. I don't think many people thought 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴 would have started as a halfback flanker, so Ashcroft was just the obvious one, and he ended up finishing second. 𝐻𝐿𝐴 had a fantastic year across halfback for North Melbourne. He had a few games forward, of course, and kicked some great goals, but him just racking up the footy across halfback, he had a great year. So, of course, deserving winner 𝐼𝐻𝐿𝐴, but yeah, Ashcroft was incorrect in the end. Okay, everyone, so we'll shift gears now, and we'll react to another video I did, 7 bold calls for the 2023 AFL season. The title of that video, it was back in March, and yeah, we'll react to a few of these because I feel like this is a video worthy of reacting to given the theme of this, and I do remember a few bold calls where I feel like I did quite well in, so let's react to the 7 right now. Kicking off the first one. I reckon one of these 3 teams will make finals in 2023, either Gold Coast, Adelaide or Essendon. Okay, well, that bold call started off absolutely pathetic as none of these 3 teams made the finals. But, you know, the thought process behind it wasn't too bad because, again, Adelaide really could have made it. The Bombers did improve this year. And the Suns, well, yeah, the Suns ended up being a really poor one. They did have a disappointing start to the year. I mean, is that a bold call, really? I don't know. I think I've got to be a little bit bolder than that, to be honest. 3 teams could have just went with 1, but I think Adelaide was the closest. So, yeah, it wasn't a bad a stab at the flag, I think, or stab at the dartboard. But, yeah, was incorrect, of course, in the end. But let's move on, shall we? Move on now to the next bold call, number 2, and I'm feeling a bit of a surprise sacking at the end of the year. Maybe it could be throughout the duration of the year, but I think there will be a surprise sacking no matter when it occurs during this season, and I predict that Luke Beveridge will be out the door at the end of 2023. So, okay, so I think that's actually quite decent. Luke Beveridge being sacked at the end of the year. Now, obviously, it hasn't happened and it probably won't happen. I think the board and the chairman or whoever said it, they are backing in Luke Beveridge, but in a way, they didn't make the finals. I got that right, and a lot of Bulldogs fans are calling for the head of Luke Beveridge, saying he should be sacked. And, you know, I think I remember saying in this video that sometimes he gets selections wrong. Sometimes he just doesn't really know what to do, how to fix, how to get out of situations throughout games. And let's be honest, that's what happened this year. So, hey, it's an incorrect one still, but again, it's not a bad stab. I think in a way, it feels like it could be justified him getting sacked. So, yeah, I guess I'll take that as sort of like a half one. It's incorrect, but it's not a bad bold call. Moving on now to my 3rd bold call for this video today, and geez, this one is pretty controversial. I reckon Jason Horne-Francis will dominate this year. Okay, again, like, is that a bold call? I guess it is, but it's a pretty broad one. Like, in terms of tear it up, what kind of tear it up is that? Was that like a, an All-Australian squad selection? Probably wrong in the end. Was really confident in him. I felt he would have a brilliant year, even though I had Port Adelaide missing final, so I guess it didn't really correlate. But the Hornets still, I felt, had some good games this year. He did quite well in the Brownlow Medal. He had like 15, 16 votes. Again, that was controversial, but I think his year was much better than his first season. His attack on the footy was great. He had some great glimpses throughout this year. He's still young. It's still only his second year, and he's a low possession getter, so I think in that young midfield, he will continue to grow. But then again, probably another incorrect one. I'll probably give that one. But again, not a bad bold call in a way. I think he probably did better than what most people thought, and I thought he went all right this year. For my fourth bold call in this video today, I reckon Noah Anderson will become a top 10 player in the competition. Okay, Noah Anderson, I reckon, would have been a top 10 player heading into this year. This was a massive bold call, in my opinion, given the amount of talent there was last year. And Noah Anderson, I felt, was on the verge of becoming a top 10 player. Now, has he become a top 10 player? Player ratings-wise, Brownlow medal-wise, and coaches' votes-wise, it says he is. He is a top 10 player in those sort of metrics. So, in a way, I'm going to be giving myself a tick for that. I think that is a correct bold call, and I'm pretty happy with that one. Noah Anderson, he should be a shoo-in for their best and fairest medal winning, best and fairest, of course, as well. I know 𝐓𝐶 did go down, which did sort of help his numbers, but he was a great player to watch this year. I think a very underrated player for Gold Coast. He had some terrific 3 votes performances across the span of this season, and then again, he's a hard player to tag. He's a hard player locked down. He's always a team where opposition try and strategize against, because he's just an absolute menace in that midfield and can win a lot of clearance and all that, and a lot of hard ball too. Can be a great player for goal. He was a bit of a goal kicker, of course, this year too. So yeah, I'll give myself a tick on that one. I think that was not a bad call in the end. Moving on now to my next bold call, and I've got another player who I think will take their game to the next level in 2023. I believe 𝐼𝐗ₐ will become a top 3 halfback flanker in the competition. Yeah, so this one, terribly wrong. If you do want to look at it from a very pessimistic view, he was not a top 3 halfback flanker and not an All-Australian. I think this one's always a bit of a vanilla selection in terms of prediction, thinking, 𝐼𝐗ₐ will boss it this year, he's going to make it. But I still think he's definitely eventually going to make an All-Australian. He had, I still think he had a really good year. He made the 22 under 22 side, and the last 6 weeks he moved into the midfield, playing a completely new role, which was interesting, playing a bit of an accountable tagging role. So yeah, I still think he's a heavily talented player, and his second half of the year, I thought had great numbers, and he still had overall a really improvement year in terms of career best numbers. So yeah, I think this bold call, again, Canberra recycled for next year. I think it's still a good chance to eventually happen, but hey, he could play a little bit more midfield. It isn't a bold calls video without a Brownlow medal type of bold call, and I've got one right here for yous. I believe Nick Daicos and Chad Warner will both finish in the top 10 for the Brownlow count. Now, honestly, just reacting at that is just not a bold call. I really need to reconsider these bold calls, a few of them. Chad Warner and Daicos in the top 10. If it's the top 5, that's a bold call, but yeah, I agree, that's poor on my end. In retrospect, Daicos did make the top 10 of the Brownlow, of course. Really should have won it if he wasn't injured. And Chad, well, in terms of impact for the Swans, he did drop off a bit this year, and I feel like he, was drinking a bit of his own bathwater with how he played. Was a little bit, cocky with how he moved the ball. He lacks a bit of inside midfield polish from what we did see this year, but numbers-wise, he still had a career best year. So I think he still is improving Warner, but his impact was a little bit less. His first half of the year was good. He polled well. I think he had like 17 or 18 Brownlow votes, so he wasn't top 10, but I think he still went okay. But yeah, that bold call wasn't a bold call. It was incorrect anyway, for goodness sake. Jesus Christ, terrible. And for my final bold call in this video today, I've got another Gold Coast one, but I'm pretty big on the Suns this year. I believe 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐿 𝐸 and Ben King will kick the most goals combined out of any 4 duo in the competition. So these are the So with another pathetic bold call right there, that concludes today's video. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. That is just, terrible. Chol was in the VFL for most of the year, and Ben King, form-wise, was no good. So pretend that didn't happen. overall, this was almost embarrassing throughout most of these predictions. There was a few okay, but yeah, a lot of prediction compared from last year was no good. A few of the bold calls I didn't mind. A few of them were pretty poor in the end, but hey, bold calls are bold calls. But yeah, no, not a bad video. It was fun to react to, everyone. So hopefully all you lot did enjoy. Again, I really appreciate the support across the season. It's been fun. The streams have been great. The tipping videos and all the during the season content's been great to do. We're close from 15k subs, so I'd love to hit that before the end of the year. We're very close, under 100 subscribers away, and keen for the off-season content. So, you know, the draft videos, the off-season, the trade period, all that whatnot, will be out. The top 10 games, of course, will be out soon. So, yeah, no, I appreciate your support, everyone. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did go on to enjoy. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. See you later, fellas.